Hello and welcome to the Hard Questions. We just read our national budget standing at about 72 trillion shillings, with URA expected to collect about 31 trillion shillings. It's everything budget as we take a deep dive with the Deputy Secretary to the Treasury, Patrick Ocailap, joining us on the Hard Questions show. Patrick Ocailap, welcome to the show once again.
Thank you, Solomon. It's always good to be with you.
All right, thanks for making time for us. It's an honor.
Thank you.
It's good to be back, but let's start from where it all started. Parliament goes into its budgeting processes, and the tentative budget was standing at about 52 trillion. And before we knew it, it shot up to 72 trillion shillings. Some have described this as an abuse of the budgeting process in this country. How did this flip?
It's not an abuse of the budgeting process. The budgeting process is not an event. It starts usually in September each year for the budget of the following year, with the first budget called circular, advising ministries, departments, and agencies to start preparing the budget for the following financial year on the basis of known information at that time. The known information is only 3 months into the financial year under which the previous budget is being implemented. That means that, more or less, at that point in time, sectors will have to start planning and budgeting at the same level as this year, other factors held constant. That then paves way for preparation of the budget framework paper for the following financial year, which lays the strategic direction of the budget for the coming financial year. At that point in time, what we have is a budget minus any new information in terms of additional revenue measures, in terms of tax policy measures, additional revenue measures in terms of the efficiency of the Uganda Revenue Authority to collect money, additional revenue which will come in on account of, say, the buoyancy of the economy. If the economy grew by beyond what we used in September, we need to adjust that number through the economic model to estimate the kind of revenue multiplier effect that will come into the revenue streams for next financial year. At that point in time, we are not concluded discussions on a decision to pay off the accumulated debt with Bank of Uganda, which otherwise was deferred, and we needed to do that. Fifth, at that point in time also, we don't have numbers from development partners or projects which are being negotiated, but negotiations are not yet concluded in terms of financing the coming financial year. All these 5 factors should not be a surprise to anyone if new information came and required then that the resource envelope for September or the BFP number of 52 trillion will be adjusted by an amount. In this case, therefore, the adjustment from 52 trillion to 72 trillion is a result of those new pieces of information which came in between February, March, and April, when the budget is normally concluded. As I said, preparation of a budget is a process. It's not an event. The information you have today may not necessarily be the same information that you have 3 months down the road. It is validated on the basis of the data which comes in as you conclude the budget. It's not concluded until it's concluded. Therefore, when Parliament approved, finally, 72 trillion, they understood what the executive meant by that adjustment and increase. It's not just thinking out numbers and then crunching numbers, no. It is a realization of additional information, which is very critical, which otherwise, if you don't take into account in concluding the budget for next financial year, you will have a distorted or a budget which is very difficult to implement because you ignored critical information that otherwise should have admitted in preparing and concluding your budget. So absolutely no confusion. It's a logical flow of events as we come to a conclusion of the budget. In this particular case, I'll be specific. The Uganda Revenue Authority efficiency measures on account of deployment of technologies. Digital stamps were expanded to a number of areas that are expected to generate some amount of money. Application of IFRIS, you remember the IFRIS, your famous subject, is one of the areas that will help Uganda Revenue Authority collect more value-added tax and any other indirect tax in the normal commercial trade in the country. 3, the proposal for the fuel tax was not part of the BFP numbers of about 250 billion. 4, there are quite a number of donor projects which came into the BFP because donors confirmed, development partners, they're not donors. Development partners who are financing with borrowed money a number of projects confirmed the numbers that will be coming into the budget for those projects next financial year. 5, Cabinet and the government took a decision to say, on account of the deferred payments Bank of Uganda, there was a rapid accumulation of interest payments, both to Bank of Uganda because of those deferred payments, but also there was a deferred payment on settling Bank of Uganda settlement of our debt. You know, Bank of Uganda pays our debt as and when it falls due. It's a command. We may not be having a cash flow at that point in time, so they go ahead and pay with the expectation that the cash flow will come to replace it. And that's about 7.8 trillion shillings. When you add all those, together with the measures that have been put in place to raise revenue, it's the one which jacked up the number by that amount to 72 trillion. So we have the numbers, we have the assumptions, we have what led to that, and we have them in the background of the budget as well as the explanations in the budget speech.
Yeah, well, many of us were worried where we're going to get the extra 20 trillion. I mean, even URA collecting money, it failed to hit its target. I think by the time the statement was being read, it was still struggling to hit its target. I think every single financial year increases its taxes, its tax collection target. I think it was about 22 trillion, then moved to 31 trillion right now they have to collect. It
was 28 trillion this year.
Yeah, 28
As of last
trillion.
week, they had given us a figure of 27 point something. Yes, there's a shortfall, but I think we shall see by the close of this year by some amount by which they may be not able to hit the target. But it's understandable. There are so many things that come into play in that.
Yeah.
The assumptions under the import taxes may not be realized because of the structure of the importation. You realize that because of the investments in oil and gas industry, most of the imports are tax exempt. Yeah. And we had factored that in the assumptions, but I think the quantum on the other side of the trade did not go the way we thought, because there's also an activity around the trade which has changed the structure of imports to those that are mainly not attracting a number of taxes. A lot of importation of medicines, research materials, and so on and so forth. And most importantly, which is very good for the economy, is because of the import substitution policy and the export promotion policy of government, quite a number of things what you used to import.
We're manufacturing
here. You will see from the minister's speech, we try to account for that as well, that because of that policy, you now see the volumes and value of exports of items that otherwise used to import being exported. They're now going the reverse way, which is good for the BOP, balance of payments for this country, which is good for a good performing policy. And that, if the imports therefore decrease on account of no importation of wheat, no importation of steel, which is taxable, no importation of waraji and spirits and whatever, no importation of soap, no importation of cooking oil, which used to be $300 million or so. We are getting taxes, all right, but the actual production which is sustainable in the economy was being substituted by imports, which hit us twice. They hit us on foreign exchange, they hit us on labor, they hit us on foreign exchange earnings. Instead of earning, we're exporting. So, to us economists, we see that as a very positive trend. If import duties are declining on account of import substitution and export promotion, it's a big tick. We can now export more, earn more money for exports to enable us to pay debt in the first instance, and also employ more Ugandans in those productive enterprises, besides expanding the economy.
Yeah. I know, Patrick, we are so deep into the budget for this financial year, and I have a lot to unpack with you. But we always forget the concluding financial year's budget performance. I mean, right now we're thinking so much into the next financial year, which begins in just a couple of days. What has been the performance of this concluding financial year in terms of the budget?
Oh, in terms of the budget, I think we've been able to do very well according to the circumstances. Because from the disbursement point of view, we have really financed a number of all critical areas. Actually, all critical areas have been financed to the extent of beyond 90%. And the activity in the economy, because of that financing, and also the cumulative effect of the previous years, have seen a number of sectors actually growing. The performance of the budget the previous year is demonstrated by the performance of the economy. If the economy grew from 5.4 last financial year to now a forecast of 6, that growth of 0.6 is quite important. And the minister also outlined areas where the growth took place. A growth took place in the construction industry. Growth took place in the services industry. Growth took place in manufacturing industry. Growth took place in other sectors. Agriculture also grew to some extent. Those are the very pillars of this economy. So if you ask me what was the performance of the economy, I would say good and satisfactory, because you clearly see the sectors for which the strategic direction of the budget was aimed at actually grew positively. And the numbers are there, and UBOS has given us those numbers. In the background of the budget, you'll find a lot of details there about which sectors grew from what level to what level. Education sector services also, we managed to finish a number of projects in the education sector from a number of funds from government as well as development partners, which have been borrowed from World Bank. Same thing with health. Quite a number of health services were expanded. Same thing with infrastructure, roads, electricity, extension to the industrial parks, the growth industrial parks, which they have for production in the economy, the growth of agriculture, mechanization, and the output of that, the growth in industry to process value addition to the output of the agricultural sector, the mining sector, and all these other sectors. Yeah. And then the services industry, the banking, the hotel and retail industry, tourism, and so on and so forth. The increase in infrastructure coverage or building of roads has taken place. So, in my view, from where I sit, the policy orientation of last financial year, as we move on to the next financial year, is very positive, because I see growth in the sectors that we sought out to do in terms of investments of the resources to those sectors. So the pessimism should be dampened a bit, and the optimism rises to appropriate levels.
When I'm hearing you, talking about, in your view, that the budget performance, was about 90% when you look at the economies.
In terms of disbursement.
Yeah, in terms of disbursement, but also the growth of the economy, from to the 6% as a benchmark for great budget performance. A number of issues have been raised this concluding financial year, including the issue of corruption that have been raised, that there are conversations that are happening between the Ministry of Finance and Parliament. Corruption scandals that have gotten the president very uneasy. Does it dishearten you to know that even in the budget performance and the budget in the budgeting process, you release money and this money actually ends up being wasted? We lose over 90 billion shillings in corruption. There's actually an ongoing story going on right now about how the Speaker of Parliament asked for over $500 million to fence her home in Bukedia and lighting, and asked for that money. The misuse of money, of public funds by government officials, and the high corruption somewhat has an effect on the budget performance and on the economy. And this is true because the president has spoken about it. As Minister of Finance, you who sits to plan for this country, how does that make you feel?
I feel disheartened, disgusted, and terribly disappointed that such tendencies have been reported and have caught the eye of the president. And I think, to the best of my knowledge, what I can do as a person is do soul searching. And my question is clear, but allow the investigations to go on. There is no two way about it. Yeah. The investigations will reveal the bottom line of this, but it's very disgusting, disheartening, and it really makes the whole issue about the delivery of public funds by some individuals, very, very questionable. So I think in the interest of the ongoing actions, we just have to leave it at that. But it's very discouraging that such a thing can happen.
Quite discouraging, because we have very wasteful expenditure in this country.
Very bad.
Last time I was with you, I was complaining about the speaker and the deputy speaker given cars of 2.6 billion. This financial year, you're giving the speaker, the parliament, 900 billion. With all these conversations of, money used, service awards of 500 million, of, 50 million, people just wasteful expenditure. The speaker asking for money to fence her private facility and put lighting. We as taxpayers are aggrieved. Ugandans are grieved.
I see that point.
Ugandans are grieved that URA comes and knocks on their doors to collect 26 trillion shillings that you've asked them to collect.
This year.
Yes, this concluding financial year. And they're almost hitting the target according to you. But when they collect this money, you allocate it and it's wasted. Public wastage of public resources, that people give themselves this money, they go and party, they give themselves service awards, it's just wasteful expenditure, and it's an indictment on you as the Minister of Finance that you're not doing enough to police this money. I mean, think about it. You're a father, you're a family member, you get your salary from your hard-earned money.
I know.
And then put the money in the family coffers, and people are just misusing it when you have roads in Kampala that have potholes, when you have people struggling. Ugandans are angry at this government, Patrick. Ugandans are mad that you collect resources, you collect taxes, but this same money is misused by people in government, and you don't seem to do anything as the Minister of Finance.
I think maybe the issue not Minister of Finance to check all these systems. I'm very confident about the systems in government that are competent to deal with investigations and conclusively investigating all these issues and come up with clear recommendations on appropriate action on each one of them, naming them one by one. I'll not go by general sentiments. I'll go by assigning those competent institutions. I know they are under serious activity to be able to go down to the root cause of all this and where this is taking place and deal with it in form of appropriate recommendations or actions to deter this. But the thing is that it's coming out in public. But let's allow the investigation arms of government, which are more competent than Minister of Finance, because there's no way Minister of Finance can go ahead policing everybody on the other side, can go and police itself. In any case, we're part and parcel of the candidates for investigations. So let's allow the thorough, competent authorities of government to really do and drill into this hole of corruption and deal with it decisively. In my view, that's a better way to look at this.
But when Mathieu Kasaija is reading the budget, he says, I allocate, I give. He literally gets the bread and cuts it. When you give people money and they misuse that money. As a person who allocates, you have a responsibility to do something about it. In this concluding financial year, sir, we bought money. We got money to buy cars for former speakers. Think about that.
We got from the Parliamentary Commission?
That's it. You remember the money, the cars that they bought.
I'm very sure that too will be part of the audit.
You see, that's what I'm saying. When you have the Speaker of Parliament, former Speaker of Parliament, Rebecca Alitwala Kadaga, she's the Minister of East African Affairs. She's a former Speaker. She got cars. All these cars lined up, and it's just this lavish life. And as the Ministry of Finance, you must be concerned about it. You must then take note of this budget and scrutinize it to the detail that, look, Parliament, I'm giving you 900 billion, but there are some things I will not allow as the Minister of Finance because you appropriate. And so,
no,
Patrick, I don't want you...
It's Parliament who appropriates.
Okay, it appropriates, but you give the money. You allocate the money. It's easy for you to say...
We don't allocate. We release the money.
You release the money.
In line with the parliamentary appropriations.
That's my point. But you can say, I don't have money for that. So I don't want you to disassociate yourself from the responsibility that the Minister of Finance must do something on wasteful expenditure.
Yeah. I get you.
And Patrick, every time we run away from these conversations, there's something it does to us. Even you as a person who sits in this chair, to look at, the money that you give and I've seen you're interested in the growing of the economy. You're interested in people getting money. You're interested in Ugandans getting better. But you cannot look on as such wasteful expenditure happens and you come back and convince Ugandans to pay taxes and increase their taxes
from where I sit,
27 to 31.
From where I sit, let me tell you, I do three things. One, it's my duty to look at, during the process of budget preparation, look at allocative efficiency of the money to the various sectors. That we do thoroughly. And we make proposals through the system, through my minister to cabinet, from cabinet to parliament for final appropriation. Where we see that the resources could better be used in an area for growth of the economy, we do make recommendations. Most of our recommendations have actually been taken into account with respect to that. Two, I do budget execution. Once the planning is done, I do budget execution. Budget execution is guided by the limits within which I can be able to raise money to pay for the goods and services that have been budgeted for and appropriated each financial year. Three, I do accountability of the money in terms of where did I put the money with respect to the appropriations you are given. That I do. The actual management of resources in the various sectors rests with accounting officers whose duty it is to account for the use of that money in those institutions. It is a tall order for me to go and go behind accounting officer to start micromanaging the resources once appropriated and once disbursed to them for the various activities which are part and parcel of their own budget. Once I've gone through that system, I can only have also maybe controls in terms of dealing with disappointment of accounting officers each financial year. In terms of if you mismanage the resources and assets the previous financial year, I withdraw the signature, or PSST withdraws the signature of appointing that accounting officer with the reasons why he cannot be appointed because of the way he or she managed the affairs of the assets and liabilities as well as the cash available to them the previous financial year. So those are the limitations that we have from our powerful position, which we want us to do. The issue of going below that in the course of budget execution is actually a subject of, as I said, the competent authority to investigate the use of money in those institutions. And they're squarely accountable for that. So I want us to know the roles and responsibilities and the limitations that we have with respect to the statutory obligations that we do in performance of our duties.
All right.
But I try at all times to take the interests of this country at heart, as guided by the direction of the leadership each year. And the main cardinal objective that I do every day here is to plan and budget for the socio-economic transformation as envisaged in the direction of the leadership of this country.
And that's what it should
And
be.
that's what I do.
And that's what it should be, Mr. Ocailap.
Yes.
Especially when we are borrowing money.
Socio-economic transformation.
When we are borrowing, that
financing programs that lift people out of poverty, the 29%.
I hear you.
32%.
And that's what it should
come
be.
out.
That's what it should be. In fact, sometimes we even borrow money. You know, our debt to GDP is at what? 49?
47.
47.
5%.
Yeah, because we borrow this money to invest money into the economy so that the economy can grow. Let's talk about your allocation. You are giving money to key priority sectors, and you talked about the agriculture sector and agro-processing. You talked about tourism. You talked about those key critical sectors. These are almost the same sectors that you talked about in the last financial year. Do you still insist that there's value for investment? There's return on investment in these sectors?
Absolutely. You know, Solomon, the investments and allocation of money to sectors is not meant to be a one-off, because this is part and parcel of the process. What you should be minding about the cumulative effect of this allocative efficiency into those sectors to create the necessary transformation in the economy. You cannot tell me that because I gave 1 trillion to pay PDM last year, and I'm giving another 1 trillion this year, the pitfalls notwithstanding, that's a bad investment. No. You need to look at the cumulative effect of the investment that we do over the years.
But what has been the return on investment on the PDM? We've so far invested $2 trillion, 2 trillion shillings.
Yes.
What is the return on investment on
PDM,
that money?
the return on investment is too early for you to judge that one now. It's too early for you to do it. First of all, you don't know the income streams. A return on investment presumes that there is a cash flow that you expect as a result of investing some amount of money, and then you do the discounted cash flows for over 5 years or whatever the lifetime of the project, and then you come up with internal rate of return. No, it doesn't work that way. This is a socio-economic transformation agenda. It involves a wide range of institutional and organizational matters to be dealt with. You know, it's a kid in the block only 2 years ago. And what did it entail? First of all, to get society organized in form of circles. Took a whole array of institutional coordination to bring them together. Now there are 10,640 circles formed across the country in each parish. That was point number one. To get people organized in that format, in those institutional arrangements, is not a simple thing. That, I think, took up almost 6 months of the first year of implementation. But the money was committed. And true to our word, we are directed and we did it. We delivered the 1 trillion in the first year. What did it do? It went for the initial round of 100 million per parish. We shall come to discuss whether or not it was value for money at that point in time. But
there must be indicators.
It's very critical because it did the first big impact. Solomon, when did you ever see in this country 100 million going to a parish in one financial year? And what? 100 million per what? Per parish going to the community in the country. And it's countrywide. That impact alone is sending a signal of aggregate demand going there. For what? Primary production at that lower level. And that's meant to awaken the households, the 39% of households which have been producing for consumption, to start producing, yes, for consumption, but have something to sell in the market for money. So this year, we're going to do the same, 1 trillion. Next financial year, another 1 trillion. You know, the program is for 5 years of 1 trillion each. And then you imagine 500 million shillings in every parish. and the impact of that. We are refining systems which were weak at the beginning, which made the implementation of PDM not realize the intended objectives in the first year. Such things like transfers of money. You remember how people used to be lining up, very frustrated, women walking long distances and so on and so forth. That's now almost behind us because necessity is the mother of innovation. You know that? The Wendy product, which has been invented by Ugandans themselves, is working miracles. Now it's easy to register on your even capability, which people can afford. It's very easy for the money now to move from here, not again through anybody else, but straight away to the circles and for onward transmission to the beneficiaries. The system of Wendy now is dual target from treasury to the receiver. No middlemen, no leaky bucket syndrome anymore. That's the revolution in its own. And that system was not there. So you cannot now pin me down that because of that leakage, and it took us time. As I said, necessity is the mother of innovation. We saw that it's necessary to do that. We have to take it on. And I'm happy we have done it. You should be clapping for us on these things. Now that it is there, we now have plugged one of the loopholes, which has a bottleneck in the implementation of the PDM. Now the next subsequent disbursements will now be real to the target beneficiaries. And I can assure you, after 5 years, let's talk about the multiplier effects of this in terms of socioeconomic transformation at a household level. Not internal rate of return of a household, no, or PDM. That's not a better way to assess it. We shall see it from how much output has come from the parishes which otherwise used not to produce for the market. How many service industries have come to process further the output of parishes into long shelf items in the market? How much of the produce that had been sold in raw form has been transformed by the aggregators at a higher level for high value export market or even internal distribution market? That's what we should be able to do, but after 5 years. But for now, we stitch. We feel about the potholes.
We just need to keep investing.
Keep your eye open. Listen to Solomon when he complains about inefficiency or a theft in the PDM. Deal with it at that point in time and timelessly stitch it, eliminate it, throw it out. Then we continue. Once all these pitfalls are sorted, administratively or legally, whatever the case may be, I can assure you PDM is a real, not a game changer, there's no game here. It's a real transformation agenda in this country has never seen before in its economic management. We have tried so many other things in the past.
Yeah,
we
that's
and we didn't quite stitch them, we didn't solve them. But now this one is a well-calculated program. First of all, it was planned for in NDP 3, and it's going to be a major anchor pillar in NDP 4. You saw the NDP 4 strategic direction. Agro-processing is one of them. And agro-processing has got a backup behind it. PDM, the 7 pillars of PDM must be implemented holistically. PDM is not transfer of money, this circle money only, not 5 trillion only after 5 years. In addition to that 5 trillion, there is an ingredient of agro-processing, which is 1.8 trillion next financial year. I hope you saw that in the budget.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, so that is meant to link with the output of the parish into the
supply
the industry. And then the Myoga in urban centers, mainly to become off-takers of the produce from the parishes into urban centers. For what? You now form the Myoga associations for restaurants. There's so many Nalongos all over, preparing food, both local and a bit sophisticated. You are supplying now the supermarkets. But I'm told now 70% of the supermarket items are produced from the farmers. You are now supplying the various chain food restaurants, and so on and so forth. That is the way to go. Then you get a beehive of activity of PDM feeding a Myoga, and a Myoga feeding the next sectors of the manufacturing, and the next sector of the manufacturing feeding the manufactured goods in the population as well as export market. That is the chemistry.
It's interesting.
And that's the economics.
It's interesting.
Yes.
Patrick, I know you're very passionate
Yes.
about PDM because it's your baby.
Yeah, yeah.
But let's talk about where you another sector that you're putting money. I had sectors that you think should be patient with. There are some sectors when I had the Honorable Machia Kasaija reading the budget and allocating that did not make sense to me because he does allocations every financial year. A very classic example is the presidential initiative on bananas that we've been funding for over 5 years. Every financial year we give these people money. In this budget that you presented to Ugandans, you're allocating 50 billion shillings to the presidential initiative on bananas. And I keep asking myself, what is the return on investment? Why have we given, this was supposed to be a research space, and then, give it to people to do mass production. Why are we consistently giving these projects money from the consolidated fund? Wouldn't it be better if they went to the Uganda Development Bank, picked money, and invested it, and they return it? Why are we giving money, for example, to the presidential initiative on bananas?
Solomon, I think let's not mix so many things. That investment is a strategic investment in terms of trying to find out a solution to the very many people who grow bananas to earn, or matoke, to earn more income. And I think right from conception, I believe it was meant to be, you're right, first of all, research into this possibility. Can we or can't we get more value out of the abundance of matoke in this country by, first of all, researching on the best technologies that can be deployed to produce an output by these raw materials of matoke. So that was the first change. But for you to do that, you cannot go everywhere. You know, sampling in statistics, and sampling in economics, and sampling in sample space. So the president decided that let's use this as a nucleus for research and innovation around a solution for matoke in its present form, but transform it into multiple forms and add more value by a factor of about 5 to whatever it is, instead of the current value of sell matoke, throw away the rotten one, eat until you burst, and then the rest is history.
And Patrick, that's okay.
And then heap the banana peel somewhere. So
and that's
once
okay.
That stage was conceived, I think the researchers, the lead people in that project, thought it fit that no, let's have demonstration gardens to also link that production with a need to supply the factory consistently by having a science for producing mass volumes per acre that you have. So that was integrated as part of that. So that now the output of matoke per acre in that place is much superior than anywhere else where matoke is produced because of that research. Why? There was need for us to have massive quantities to supply consistently the same quality, the same grade and whatever of matoke into the factory. That has now been escalated. I'm told we need to go there. Actually, you need to go there first of all before we can start dismissing or approving of the idea. Now, I'm informed, it has now reached a level where the testing of production is going on. And there are quite a number of byproducts out of that. The powder, the porridge, the cakes, etc., etc. And the byproducts can be used for manure. Byproducts can also be integrated in another factory. There is a banana fiber thing from the banana stems, which can be integrated with cloth manufacture or manufacture of other products for selling in the market. So out of a banana, with enhanced, well-researched output per acre to supply such industry as banana, if it's expanded and escalated, will be a game changer and a transformer of the banana producers in this country.
And we're investing over 100 billion to this thing.
Yes.
Could it,
but
maybe
how
we,
much,
maybe
how much
we
more,
look at it
how much more will that 100 billion generate in future years and in perpetuity, sustainably. How much more will it, can you guess how much it is?
What, so
beyond
why
the
are you
research
giving 50 billion shillings to the initiative, to
It
the
is- it's
presidential
now-
initiative for bananas?
Yeah, we got the analysis from the scientists who are there, that 50 billion now will now finalize the remainder of what it needs to make it now a complete, fully integrated operation for commercialization. So that is what the advice we got from the scientists. And let's respect scientists. These guys are they take a lot of time to do a lot of things to solve our problems.
You are an economist.
Yes.
You invest money and look at projection because you expect money to come back.
It will come back.
The presidential initiative on bananas was a research space.
At the beginning, yes, to
And
find a
right
solution.
now, I am saying let them go to UDB and get money at an interest. UDB gives money on agriculture and agro-processing. Let them get money from UDB. Don't pick money from the consolidated fund and just give these white elephants
Do you
that
know-
have now become conduits
Solomon,
through which
I can now see your
money-
your appreciation for research is a bit constrained. But I
No,
can
I am
now-
okay. I mean, I've not questioned why
Do you
government,
know
why you're
that-
allocating money
do you
to
know
the
that
Uganda Virus
research?
Research
Do you know that
Institute.
research is very, very expensive
I know.
and it cannot be done by any private sector person apart from Johnson and Johnson and those big companies. Research in our developing economies, and by the way, most countries, and I think the president guided us very well, that research and innovation and knowledge economy is actually the untapped strength for sustainable growth and development in this country. And that's why in this next year's budget onwards, you are seeing more and more money going into research for the scientists in the pathogen economy. You are seeing a lot of money going to research in a number of areas, precisely because without research, and you want to achieve the quest for development in a sustainable way, you are going to buy a lot of research materials outside through your nose.
Patrick, I
But
appreciate
if you have,
that.
Banana Project has started as research, and I told you that research showed that there is no way that Banana Project factory, because machinery can work if you don't integrate it with the science of production to ensure that the supply to that factory is consistent. It is always there to sustain the operation of the factory. And I can assure you, it's not going to be that factory only.
So
That one's
is it
just a research area.
operating as a business?
Is
it operating as a research farm? Is it what? Patrick, you allocate money
it
to the Uganda Development Bank to support such initiatives. At the same time, you're getting 50 billion and sinking it into...
You wanted me to first send money to the UDC, then UDC gives it to them.
Give it to UDB. It's an agriculture initiative. Let them get money from UDC or to get money, and then they can invest that money.
But you have
and then return that money, because I heard that they have now started getting orders, right?
Yes.
Machiaka Saija mentioned it, that
Yes.
they have started getting
Yes.
orders and they
Yes.
have to produce.
They have now reached a level of maturity.
Then go to UDB, get 50 billion, pump it in, pay back that money, rather than Ocailap getting 50 billion and giving them to these people.
No, I want you to just calm down and see this project as one of the very many that government is doing. This is a government initiative. Government, and UDC, actually it's under UDC, by the way, in case you didn't know. This operation is under UDC. And UDC is the investment arm of government.
It has its own
And
appropriation.
we have, no. Yes, it's part of capitalizing UDC, but in this factory. You must know that. It's 100% government owned, just like UDC is 100% government owned. The least you would say, instead of taking the factory to UDB to borrow, is to say capitalize UDC, because 100% government asset holder, to invest in this factory. It's the same thing. But now that is guided by a well thought out process, we have reached the maturity stage by giving it 50 billion next financial year. And we expect to see better results. From the orders they are going to manufacture, and henceforth, they'll now be using that for expansion to other areas in terms of teaching the people how to produce these banana varieties, scaling up the production, selling the things, and maybe also start now meeting their operational costs, which currently are in the consolidated fund.
Let's agree.
So,
Patrick, let's agree today that
so,
on that one I disagree.
No,
but it's okay to disagree.
I'll not disagree.
There I disagree with you, Patrick, on that.
No.
But let's talk about another key sector.
As you disagree, I welcome you for us to discuss. Hopefully I'll be here next year at the same time. Let's discuss the same topic.
Let's talk about,
and then I'll be able to show you.
Let's talk about the private sector.
Yes.
Which is a very important tool here. The private sector. The president seems to a bit say, okay, the private sector is supposed to drive this economy, certainly. And when you look at our exports, by the way, I was surprised, Patrick, our biggest export is gold. Where are we getting this gold from? At 75% of our exports.
You're not sure that, you're not aware that there are gold mines in this country?
We have, but for it to be our leading export.
I'm happy to report it's refined 99.9% market value international.
It's our biggest export.
Yeah.
Gold.
Congratulations.
After that, coffee.
Yes.
But when you look at our exports, they focus so much on, our leading export was cement. We talked about soap. We talked about sugar. And some other elements. But it points to the private sector. Is this budget really focusing on supporting private sector growth?
Very much so. Very much so. Very much so. Support to private sector is multifaceted. Let's start with investments in power, generation, transmission, and supply to industrial parks. That's one single biggest public sector support.
Correct.
The private sector. And how much money have we pumped there? And we're still pumping there? Is quite substantial amounts of money.
Reducing
because we
cost
know
of production.
Transformation starts from reduction of the cost of production, and energy is key in that. 2, we continue to support the private sector in terms of the other infrastructure developments. Where there are industrial parks, of course you must have water supply. You must have ICT infrastructure. You must have the road network. You must have the connectivity, and so on and so forth. All those are public sector investments aimed at supporting the private sector. 3, we come to the incentive regime which is available for private sector investment.
Exactly, that's where I was coming. The private sector needs cheap capital.
Yeah, I'm coming to capital. Capital is another angle. But I'm coming to the incentive regime. The incentive regime that's available is quite generous on a number of issues. The working capital and the cost of capital arguments in this case and in Uganda are largely supported through government. The rest of operation is private sector, all right. But we realize that some of these are not going to be met by private sector alone because of the sheer cost of capital out in the private commercial institutions. That's why we set up UDB. I hope you're aware of the interest rates under UDB. They are not as high as what you'd get.
I'm one of the people who advocated for the capitalization of UDB.
Yeah. And you should be happy that we're capitalizing it. And I think we're giving them another 100 billion this financial year.
Yeah.
Besides 100 billion, they also have, because of their own positioning as a development bank, under the auspices of African Development Bank and other development banks, we're getting lines of credit, which are quite cheap from those other sources. Instead of UDB going to financial markets to mobilize money at rates of 10% or whatever it is now in international market, we now, as a government, step in and guarantee these lines of credit to Uganda Development Bank. I think there were some of them about to come through to Parliament from ADB, Islamic Development Bank, and so on and so forth, in order to meet the huge portfolio which is coming and waiting for money under their arms. So that's a very big action by government of Uganda in supporting the private sector. Another support to private sector which you don't see quickly, which we started with, is this investments in the PDM. Those investments will supply the private sector with cheap capital. And you know the interest rate on the PDM money? You research on that and I'll give you that one. So it's almost zero interest rate to the farmers. We are incentivizing production at the lowest level in order to supply industry, which is run by the private sector.
Okay.
And with that, in fact, some other institutions were hearing when we said, let this money now leave PDM, leave straight the other side. Oh, they were saying that, now this money is going to help these guys. And many people are going to have money now. So I don't know who will come to pick money. Yeah. Or alternatively, the money which otherwise they would have placed in our bonds is no longer going to them. So it's going straight to the other people.
You told us that the economy grew from 5.4% to 6%, but people don't feel that in their pockets.
Yes, that's a common question, and I know it's your trade.
Maybe it's you people who feel the economy is growing.
No, but I told you at the beginning, and it's not a hidden secret. I can give you the background, the budget to go with, and you read it in your time. You find the sectors which grew, which contributed to that growth. They are there. You can see it. Agriculture is part of it. And which part of agriculture grew? The export also grew, by the way, in terms of the value of export compared to last financial year.
75% being gold.
Yeah, yes. Yeah.
Only 25 being
that's
coffee.
Our output. That's our output. The coffee, they grew. The services industry. Do you care to look at the financial statements of commercial banks? That's part of the service industry. The insurance companies, they publish their financial statements before their AGMs. You see clearly the growth in those sectors. The returns are quite reasonable. We saw the growth in the manufacturing, as I told you, 20% compared to last year. You saw the growth in, I talked about agriculture, services, and a number of construction industry. It has not died down. Solomon is busy building as if there's no tomorrow, and so on and so forth. So the cement industry is going up, growing. And because of the buoyancy, that growth, the buoyancy of revenue is also growing. And in fact, in a small element of buoyancy in the numbers of revenue. So this is a consistent thinking that goes on when you come up with these numbers. So yes, at a micro level, you need to watch out for what the economists say, the microeconomic distortions of the macros. Because if I start listening to Solomon alone, who talks to very many people like I also do, and carry the story of the economy not growing because I'm not okay, then it's a problem. Then the first question I'll ask you, Solomon, what do you do from morning to evening in your daily life? You are producing a service. All these people are employed. These are employed to produce a service. You are earning income. That income, I know you're going to put it somewhere for after school fees and the rest of it. The savings will go to investment in your NSSF, and I'll declare a return on investments to you as a result of that saving. And that's a multiplier effect of the economy. And our quest actually, me and you and everybody else, is to try to do something, make some little money in the economy to support yourself, because the government cannot support everything. I'll give you the necessary parameters for you to operate. And you can see the opportunities in the budget. The minister summarized them very well. They are available for you to seize and then run away with it. Make money, pay my taxes, you grow, I use the taxes for growing the economy. But me and you should deal with corruption by reporting it. If you see there's a tendency for corruption here, please report quickly to competent authorities. Because you come back to me, who is Ocailap now, to investigate a corrupt person, the authorities will deal with it decisively. And my prayer is that the action is taken quickly, and then that's sorted. So that's what we should do. Our next discussion, therefore, should be by how much has the economy grown, and I want you to help me distribute the next amount of money to the priority areas.
Deputy Secretary to the Treasury, Patrick Ocailap, thank you so much for speaking to us.
Thank you, Solomon. It's always a pleasure to be with you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bless you.
I've been speaking to the Deputy Secretary to the Treasury, Patrick Ocailap, on the budget performance and its projections ahead of the beginning of the financial year. I'm Solomon Serwanja, and this is The Hard Questions.